This is my substance abuse presentation on an article by Reamer et al. From 2019 called "She Looks Like She'd Be an Animal in Bed: Dehumanization of Drinking Women in Social Contexts." Introduction. The purpose of Rimmer's study was to examine the perception of women who drink in social conditions through the lens of dehumanization. Webster's dictionary defines dehumanization as the act of depriving someone or something of human qualities, personality, or dignity. So, that being said, when women are compared to their sober counterparts, the presence of alcohol produces a negative social perception of them and adverse treatment that includes dehumanization. So, previous research, according to Capero's 2000 study, when college men drink alcohol, adventure, and the paradox of masculinity, people tend to be more critical of intoxicated women in comparison to their counterparts. Presumably, this is because heavy drinking confirms gender stereotypes, like men are just more perceived to be drinkers than women are. Whereas similar drinking behavior violates gender stereotypes, but like per se, like if women were to do that, it wouldn't be like a feminine trait there. It would be not considered appropriate. Further studies, such as Abby's 2011 alcohol role in the sexual violence perpetration, I think I pronounced that right, found that alcohol usage also raises the likelihood of sexual victimization for women substantially more than it does for males. The effect of alcohol use on sexual violence has identified links between women's alcohol use and men's misperceptions of sexual interest. So basically, they're saying when a woman is intoxicated, they cannot give their full consent. So even if they say yes, like obviously they're not giving you their consent, they're intoxicated, because our minds are typically impaired when we are under the influence. So basically, like if a woman's being more flirtatious, and that could just be the effect of the alcohol, a man is obviously going to think otherwise and just not care. Purpose of present research and hypothesis. The purpose of the study was to expand on previous research by determining the presence of alcohol. If the presence of alcohol alters people's judgments of young white women by making them appear less human. I'll get into the whole racial aspect of this later, but anyways. The hypothesis was Reamer and her team expected greater dehumanization of the female target when alcohol was present due to the gender norms regarding alcohol consumption. They also had a second hypothesis, which I'll be mentioning a lot, where they hypothesized perceived intoxication would emerge as a possible mechanism for the link between the presence of alcohol and dehumanization of drinking women. Experiment 1. I should probably say now this was split into 3 experiments, so as this progresses, like the slides might get less detailed because they all kind of were the same experiment, but like they all got the same result. You'll see. Okay. Experiment 1. Participants. There was 25 to 30 men per condition. So basically this was just men. They wanted to see male perceptions on women. They were all from Amazon's Mechanical Turk. It didn't really say where that was, but anyways. They were prompted to pick a specific response and choose response choice 5 times throughout the research as an attention check. So basically, they were asked questions. They were asked questions to see if they would like not be deceitful and whatnot. 9 participants were unable to accurately select the acceptable answers for all types attention tests. So there was only 55 males when they conducted the first experiment. Procedure. The experiment was programmed via Qualtrics, which is basically just a survey software. And the alcohol condition was manipulated with 1 or 2 pictures of a white woman, 21 years of age, wearing dating attire at a generic bar. The researchers created a fake Facebook persona of a woman named Sam Duncan to go along with the photos. She was pictured with either her holding a bottle of beer, which was the alcohol condition, or a bottle of water, which was the control and sober condition. Participants were randomly allocated to either an experimental manipulation or the control condition, and they were asked to describe their impressions of the lady in the image. After they completed their trial and whatnot, they received their compensation. Measures. So participants were asked to rate the extent of which they denied the target of human qualities. So the measures were basically of dehumanization and of I think there was alcohol intoxication and manipulation checks, but I'll continue on this. Basically, they were given an 8-item scale that asked questions like, Sam appeared to be refined and cultured, and then vice versa. Sam appeared to be rational and logical, vice versa. Sam appeared to lack self-restraint like an animal. Sam appeared to be unsophisticated and whatnot. They also were given 4 human nature attributes that distinguish Sam from a non-human object. She appeared superficial. She had no depth. Sam appeared mechanical and cold like a robot. Sam appeared to be open-minded, like she could think clearly about things. And Sam appeared emotional, like she was responsive and warm, and they would all be switched and whatnot. On a 7-point Likert type scale ranging from 1 to not at all to 7 very much so, participants were asked to rate the amount of which each item represented Sam. And so basically the higher scores indicated greater dehumanization, while the lowers indicated lower dehumanization. Alcohol intoxication was assessed by asking participants to judge how inebriated they thought the female target was. The items were Sam appeared to be tipsy, Sam appeared to be drunk, Sam appeared to be buzzed, and Sam appeared to be intoxicated. Those questions were rated on, again, a 7-point Likert type scale from 1 to not at all to 7 very much so. Lastly, participants were asked to rate the level of agreement with the statements Sam was drinking water and Sam was drinking beer using a 7-point Likert scale ranging from 1 to not at all to 7 very much so. Results. So basically, confirming the success of the manipulation checks, participants in the control condition indicated that Sam was drinking water more than those in the alcohol condition and vice versa, so they did get the answers right. There was effect on the alcohol condition on dehumanization, which relates to hypothesis 1, so they were correct. And there was a significant effect of the alcohol condition on perceived intoxication, where the female was drinking alcohol was depicted as being more intoxicated than the female drinking water. Increased perceived intoxication was linked to higher dehumanization, and greater perceived intoxication was linked to increased dehumanization. So drinking women were found to be more dehumanized as a result of their perceived intoxication. So they were correct again with hypothesis 2. Experiment 2. So basically this one included both men and women. So overall, this experiment was the same thing, except for they just added male targets and female targets, and both male and female participants. So there was 216 of them in total. 4 failed to pass the attention checks, the same ones in experiment 1. So there ended up being 91 men and 106 women. So the procedure for experiment 2 followed the exact same of experiment 1. However, in this experiment, the researchers manipulated the target's gender identity. Instead of simply just being female, Sam could also be seen as a male. That's why they chose like a pretty gender neutral name and whatnot. In each photo, Sam remained holding either a water or beer bottle. However, the participants were split into 2 groups, and they would only be viewing one of these images. So no matter what photo they got, they would only stick to looking at that photo. And the measures remain the same as of experiment 1. The results. So the manipulations were once again successful with the participants in the water condition, indicating that the target was drinking water more than those in the alcohol condition and vice versa. The differences in gender were shown not to be significant in regards to dehumanization or perceived intoxication. No difference, male or female participants. There was... I didn't write that in a full sentence, I'm sorry. But basically their perceptions, no matter of the male or female participants, changed between either if it was a male or female target. As hypothesized, targets in the alcohol condition were dehumanized more than targets in the water condition. Both male and female targets in the water conditions, along with males in the alcohol conditions, were similarly dehumanized less than women in the alcohol condition. However, the women in the water condition were perceived to be less intoxicated than their male targets. So it seemed that though, even though if the men were drinking water, they still were perceived to be intoxicated. Experiment 3. So in this one, there was a total of 181 people who lived in the United States. I think I didn't put this down, but they came from a high school, not a high school. They came from universities across the United States. 35 failed to pass the attention checks as described in Experiment 1 and were removed from the analysis. 31 participants, oh yeah, I did mention that, my bad, I'm sorry. So 31 were from small private northeastern institutions, while 117 were from Amazon's Mechanical Turk. Procedure. The alcohol condition was manipulated in similar fashion as to Experiment 1. However, this time a quantity manipulation was added. The participants viewed the same photos. However, there was now a Facebook status that conveyed the target had either down 4 beers or 4 waters. There was also an ambiguous condition where basically there would be no Facebook status, and they would just say, there would be a Facebook status. It just wouldn't tell you exactly how many they drank. So they'd just be like, I drank water today, blah, 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 such a long day or something. Or they'd be like, I'm celebrating, I'm drinking alcohol or something like that. But it didn't include whether it was a specific number. Results. The alcohol condition maintained the same results as Experiment 1 and 2. The effect of the amount of alcohol on perceived sobriety was not significant. The alcohol condition, women were perceived less as sober when she had multiple drinks, and within the water condition, women were perceived to be equally as sober when she drinks were numbered or of ambiguous quality. So they didn't really see much of a difference there. As in Experiment 2, there was no effects on gender for dehumanization or perceived sexual availability. Discussion. So despite what they do, overall, women will always be socially perceived in a poorer manner than those of men. Young women presented in a social environment with a bottle of beer were perceived less human across all 3 studies, which was consistent with their expectations. Experiment 2 indicated that dehumanization was unique to women who drank alcohol. Whether males drank alcohol or not, men were dehumanized to a lower level than women who drank alcohol. Experiment 3, several drinks of any sort, beer or water, prompted participants to ascribe to women with fewer human characteristics. Beyond social perception, the alarming discovery that alcohol leads to dehumanization may pave the way for many bad social actions towards drinking women, implying that bar banter about drinking women's views may lead to more sinister effects. So basically, overall, it is just the findings were equivalent with those of the researchers, and I'm sure many's perceptions of women who drink alcohol in comparison to men. So they will, no matter what, be treated poorly in comparison to their counterparts. What I would change. Discussion continued. Okay, like I mentioned before, I kind of had a problem with how this study was written. It seemed as though they were like, maybe it was just I was taking it a weird way, which I don't know, but I just found it kind of odd that they only singled it to female heterosexual white women who are the ones who get objectified, when it could really be any woman of any race or any sexuality or literally anything. If I were to reconstruct your experiment, and this is my biggest criticism, I would make it more open to all diverse sociological aspects. I would even just my thing is, I feel as though that no matter a woman, whether she is gay, straight, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, transgender, no matter what, they still are going to be objectified in some way, because that is just kind of like a rule of thumb for women. We just have to deal with that. Not that we have to deal with it, but it happens. So I think it's more important not to focus on one social demographic And because I feel as though this experiment just really adhered itself towards stigma, and I was not a big fan of that at all. Even though the participants were of all different socioeconomic or sociological backgrounds, it was just the fact that it was just stemmed on straight heterosexual white and women and males that just made me a bit uncomfy. And these are my references, so thank you for listening.